views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
All right, welcome to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. We have a great show today. Quasi Judicial Decisions, what are they and how they're going to affect your case in Supreme Court? We'll let you know with our guest, Jennifer Budner, who will be here. Also, State Senator Robert Jackson is here to talk about a very important law that now will protect all tenants throughout New York City. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's verdict starts right now. Welcoming Robert Jackson, New York State Senator from the 31st District, and we are so happy to have him. Really important things to get to. Senator, first of all, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this law is so important to tenants throughout our city. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about the history of the law and how it finally came to fruition?
Sure. Well, the beginning of the history of it, it goes way back. I'm talking about almost 2 decades. A little boy, 8 years old, was killed in an apartment building due to an electrical fire. And this building in the Bronx had about 350 rounded off violations against the building. And many of those violations were Class C violations. People say, what is a Class C? Class C is the highest violation that HPD gives against a building because it's either danger to life or health and well-being of the people that live there. And so Jeff Dinowitz, who is the assembly member for that area where the building was, the following year filed a bill in the New York State Assembly, basically saying, okay, when a landlord fails to make the proper repairs and more than 1/3 of the tenants demand action be taken, or HPD, we put pressure on HPD to go into court to tell the court that we need to force the landlord to make these repairs or assign a 7A administrator. And a 7A administrator is someone that has experience, either a nonprofit or profit organization that has been working with tenants and how many units in the building in order to make the repairs. And how do they make the repairs? Either one, they get the money from the rents that come in, or they can through a 7A loan that may happen. So the bottom line is that there's a process. But what advocates were saying for years is that the law at that time did not have any teeth.
Yes.
And so as a result,
it looks like the stars just aligned with respect to both houses, being democratic and finally getting on the same page.
And the answer is yes. I mean, Jeff Dinowitz, every year it passed in the New York State Assembly, and then before we put it in, Jose Peralta, who was a state assembly member from Queens, who passed away, and as you know, from a political point of view, he was a member of the IDC. Let me just tell you like this. And the IDC was the Independent Democratic Conference, in which basically they aligned themselves with the Republicans to keep the Republicans in leadership control of the New York State Senate. And in my opinion, the Republicans were not basically advocates for the tenants, because the majority of tenants live in New York City. The majority, obviously you have Buffalo, you have Rochester, you have the other areas. They've been some rural areas, but the majority of them in New York City. So as a result of that, it went nowhere. And then my team picked it up. Someone passed the baton, or we found the football on the ground, and we picked it up and ran with it. And basically, we passed it in the New York State Senate. And so it passed in the Assembly and the Senate, and both bills are exactly the same, no matter how you turn it over. And then it was then submitted to the governor for his signature. And as a result of the fact that if you're the governor and you look at this, and if in fact landlords have been not making necessary repairs that's a threat to their life or their welfare, then you have to sign it into law. And he signed
Senator,
it into law. So thank Governor Cuomo.
We talked about this off air, that when you don't have heat and you don't have hot water, there's nothing worse, and there's no one to turn to. It's easy for some people in their apartments when they have these these basic necessities of life, but if you're living in a rent-regulated apartment and you don't have that, you are suffering, and it's cold out there, and this is so important. Am I correct?
You're absolutely correct. I tell you from my personal experience, when I was in college, and I went to SUNY New Paltz, so I'm going back about 1970, 71, 72, I would come home sometimes for a weekend, and we didn't have any heat. We used to sleep in our coats and everything. It was so damn cold. I said, Mom, I love you, but I'm going back upstate to go to school, because we were sleeping with 2 or 3 blankets and our coats on and our hats on to stay warm. That's a terrible situation, and that's why organizing one another, working together with the other tenants to say, listen, let's go on a rent strike, or let's take action against this landlord. And who can we reach out to? We can reach out to Met Council and other nonprofit organizations that help tenants, that help to educate tenants and help to lead tenants in the direction that they should be going in order to, take the landlord to court.
I tend to refer a lot of the clients many times to housing court. I tell them, listen, go to the order to show cause window, tell them you need an emergency, repairs to be made, whatever it happens to be, anything that can help them through this period, especially through the coronavirus and through the fact that they don't have the monies to be able to do these things on their own. The only ones who could really come to their aid is their landlord, right? So now that we're becoming a little bit more of a tenant-friendly city, hopefully, do you have any thoughts on where we're heading? Is there anything else we can do now to really help out the tenants of the 5 boroughs?
For me, I turn to the housing advocates, and I turn to the attorneys that are in court, that know the system, because I don't, I know a little bit, but probably I know probably 5% of what you know.
I get it.
But so the most important thing is we turn to the advocates to give us direction, and we turn to the advocates to put pressure on us, to try to put pressure on the leaders, both in the Assembly and Senate, the Speaker and the Majority Leader, in order to move in a direction in order to support tenants. So for example, people are saying cancel rent, okay? Obviously, if in fact you are one of several million people or a couple of 100,000 people that have lost their job during the pandemic, and you don't have money to pay rent, you want some relief. And so the governor has put forward executive orders, and also we have taken action in order to try to help the tenant. Well, here's the bottom line, in my opinion. So if this is a 50-unit building where, for example, half of the tenants lost their job, but the other half, from a rent point of view, have not lost their job and they can pay rent, I would say pay your rent.
Sure.
Pay the rent. Half will pay the rent, half doesn't have it to pay. So the landlord, assuming it's a small landlord, they can juggle, you know what I mean, to keep everything going. But if you have no income coming in, then it's a problem.
Well, I will say this has been a nice Thanksgiving Day present that you've certainly given the tenants of the city of New York. We want to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, Senator.
Well, I appreciate that. I want everyone to be safe and healthy. So I always say, try to end with peace and blessings to everyone. But obviously, as a state senator, I'm looking to do what I can to help not only tenants, but everyone, small business owners and homeowners, in order to stay in their homes.
State Senator Robert Jackson, we want to thank you, and come back whenever you'd like.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. We'll be back with more Today's Verdict. Stay with us right after this.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption
of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Trans.
We are back and very happy to have Jennifer Budner with us. Jennifer, I see in court all the time, and she's going to enlighten us a little bit on the topic of judicial versus quasi-judicial and what that means. It's been a long time for me. Jennifer, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thrilled to be here.
All right, so it's a little confusing. I see you in the courtrooms. We know about judges. We know about juries. We're talking about really a different area of law that impacts on our area of law, and that's really more the administrative types of decisions. Broadly, what are we really talking about when we talk about these quasi-judicial decisions?
Well, a quasi-judicial decision is a decision that comes out of an administrative body that is similar to a court proceeding. So for example, if you have a hearing at the Department of Motor Vehicle and you're contesting a ticket, that's a quasi-judicial proceeding. There's an administrative law judge deciding a contested legal issue, and you have the ability to present evidence, and then the administrative law judge decides the case.
Let's take us into that room, because are we really sure that what we're getting is a fair and impartial hearing? I know what we're getting when we're in the courtrooms, whether in the Bronx or wherever we are, but what are you getting in the hearings that you know that you can rely on when you want to use it as evidence in your regular case?
Okay, so if you want to use a quasi-judicial decision in your third party, say personal injury action, there first has to be something called identity of issue. So if you're using it for the purposes of collateral estoppel, the issue that's decided by the administrative law judge must be the same issue that you're facing in your third party action. So that's number one. The second issue is whether the party that the collateral estoppel is being sought to use against in the third party action, were they present at this quasi-judicial hearing? So if they were present and a party to, or in privity with someone or an entity that was in a party to, then that decision is deemed reliable and generally accepted and can be used for purposes of collateral estoppel.
So let's give the viewers an example of maybe some of the work you do and how you would use these quasi-judicial decisions to help your case.
Okay, so if there is a decision involving, say you're defending a motor vehicle case, and the plaintiff is trying to stop you from defending on the issue of causation or whether your client is negligent, you would want to go take a look at the DMV website, get the ticket number, the driver's date of birth, etc., see whether any tickets issued, find out what the disposition of those tickets are, and then you do the analysis. If plaintiff's attorney is saying, hey, DMV decided your client lost his license, so you are precluded from defending upon liability. Well, hey, that doesn't meet the issue preclusion prong of the test, right? Because you have to look at, and the Supreme Court will look at, well, what issue did that judicial body decide? Did they decide causation for the third party accident? No, they decided whether or not your license should be suspended. So the identity of issue is not met. However, plaintiff can use that decision as some evidence of negligence, but it doesn't preclude me from defending and pointing the finger to plaintiff or other parties involved.
You know, I've seen some of the work that we do here in our office. We end up looking at a lot of the workers' compensation carriers and some of the hearings that go on there. How does that impact what happens in Supreme Court?
It's the same analysis. Workers' compensation decisions very commonly encountered in personal injury practice. Anything that they decide can be used in the same context. For instance, one issue I come across often is identity of employer issue. And this can help both sides, plaintiff's attorneys and defense. if you know there's been workers' compensation hearings, get your hands on that board file immediately. Find out whether or not there were any decisions regarding identity of employer. And if you're a plaintiff deciding to take a case, you'll know, well, I can't sue X, Y, and Z company because they were deemed to be the plaintiff's employer, and then we're going to have the workers' compensation bar against suing them.
Sure.
And for the defendants, we can make our pre-answer motion to dismiss on that basis.
Where do the problems arise? I mean, there's always a problem. So what seems to be the difficulty that you sometimes have in either getting, the hearing material or whatever it is? What seems to be the hurdles that need to be jumped over?
Well, I think if you're looking at this and putting this into practice, some of the hurdles can be avoided. Number one is surprise. Your client doesn't tell you about this Department of Buildings violation that resulted in a stop work order on your job. If you don't know about it, your witness can be taken by surprise, either at deposition or you get hit with a summary judgment motion and you've already finished discovery.
Sure.
So that's number one. It's really just not getting the information early enough. And then I think people not understanding the doctrine well enough to properly defend against them.
Speaking of which, in terms of getting the information, let's talk websites. Where do you go? Where would you go if you needed to get this type of information?
Well, it depends on what exactly that you're looking for. If you're looking for Department of Motor Vehicle decisions such as tickets, you can go to their website, do a search for ticket number, date of birth, and you can get the results of those tickets. If you're looking for a Department of Buildings decision, you can go to the DOB. It's the DOB website, which is newyorkcity.gov buildings. You enter the address and you find out whatever you want to know for that property.
Listen, final tips. We don't have much time. You're going to have a lot of attorneys who are watching. I'm sure many are going to reach out to you. You've already done CLEs, which we really do appreciate here in the Bronx. Couple of tips. You're almost finished. What do you think? What's the most important thing you would tell a practicing attorney with respect to these types of decisions?
Look into this stuff early. As soon as that file hits your desk, if you don't have the time, give your paralegal a list of websites to search, teach them how to do the searches, and continue through the process. Workers' compensation, you got to update those records regularly because those cases span the life of the GL case sometimes.
And finally, where do we find you?
I am a partner here at Pillinger, Miller, Tarallo, J. Budner at pmtlawfirm.com.
Well, Jennifer, thanks so much, and hopefully you'll come back because this is very interesting. I'm going to get you all your material and hopefully use it as best I can in my cases.
Great. Thank you for having me.
It's all right. We'll be back with more Today's Verdict. Stay with us right after this. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed our show. If you missed any part of it, you could see the rebroadcast. In the meantime, any issues, anything you want me to discuss, just email me at davidlesch@bronxnet.org. Until we see you next time, remember, know your issues, know the law, reach a verdict. We'll see you next time. But before we go, we'll leave you with a special tribute by our BronxNet reporter, Sonji Lopez, commemorating the life of Shirley Rodriguez Remeneski, a Latina leader who dedicated her life to public service on behalf of Puerto Rico and the Latino community of New York City. Happy Thanksgiving. And everybody, please stay safe. We'll see you next time.
Shirley Rodriguez Remeneski was born in the Bronx in 1938 to parents Providencia O'Neill and Armando Rodriguez. She was a smart, kind, and beautiful girl who grew to lead a remarkable life filled with service to the public and her family. She was a woman who consistently gave back to her community and made an effort to help others.
I admired her greatly simply because her initial reaction was to serve others, to do good for the community, and not to expect anything in return. And what I did get from her, more than anything else, is that every day you go out into the world and you try and do your best, and you leave this world better than when you found it.
Shirley's accomplishments included creating and directing the first social services unit in the Bronx Borough President's Office under the leadership of Germán Badillo and his successor, Robert Abrams. In 1971, she became the district administrator for U.S. Congressman Badillo, managing and coordinating operations between New York City and Washington, D.C. Subsequently, Shirley became assistant deputy mayor for affirmative action, intergovernmental relations, and community development in the South Bronx, Harlem, and other underdeveloped areas in New York City under the Koch administration. Shirley went on to become the legislative coordinator for the South Bronx Development Organization, headed by urban planner Edward J. Logg. She helped secure federal funding to create the South Bronx Job Corps Center, land revitalization projects, and named the South Bronx an empowerment zone in order to support private business development and housing assistance to community-based organizations. In 1986, she assumed the position of executive director to Governor Mario Cuomo's Office for Hispanic Affairs, where she initiated the Puerto Rico Exchange of Officials program. She initiated the Hispanic Mentoring Program in partnership with the New York City Board of Education, private employers, and the New York City Governor's Office. During this time, she served as a delegate to the White House Conference on Libraries and Informational Services to help author the 1988 Hispanic National Agenda. From 1993 to 2002, Shirley served as Deputy Commissioner and Equal Employment Opportunity Officer for the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development for the Giuliani administration. Returning to New York State service in 2002, Governor Pataki appointed her as Senior Vice President at the Empire State Development Corporation's Economic Development Division.
She's had quite an illustrious career. She was a formidable public servant, and she served with great distinction and honor, and she worked very hard for the public good.
In 1996, Shirley founded the 100 Hispanic Women, Inc. with a group of dynamic and professional Latina women committed to empowering other Latinas through scholarship and mentoring programs while helping them network and maximize opportunities in government and corporate America.
Shirley was one of those women that believed in helping other women, and the way that the organization was started. And we gathered in her living room in the Bronx, in Riverdale, and that's where the 100 Hispanic Women was formed. We talked about what is it that we want to do, how do we want to do it, and at the time, back then, there was a lot of interest in what was going on in the Hispanic community, especially with Latinas, so it was a perfect time to start the organization. Today, we're 22 years later, and we have all kinds of programs that were founded by the organization.
Now in its 22nd year, 100 Hispanic Women is still a thriving and growing organization, providing promising scholars with scholarships and mentoring support annually.
Shirley had the vision to make an organization that would give them access and maximize their opportunities so that they would learn how to network with each other and develop opportunities for each other. And that's exactly what happened. It was a local organization. It just became a national organization about 4 years ago. And so now what we want to do is spread and be able to replicate everything that we've done in New York to other states. Follow the same model, to network, to give scholarships. We also do an annual wellness conference where women come and they do meditation and yoga, and there's top speakers, national speakers that are authors, all Latinas, because for many professional Latinas, they never see representation. And so when they go to these events, one of the things that they come away with is that there's no one that speaks, directly to them. And so they wanted people that understand the things that they've gone through and also the evolution for them. And so that's what we provide for our members and for those that participate in our events.
We have many thousands of women and young women who have gone through scholarships, who have been part of most of our programs.
In 2008, Shirley continued her pursuit to help young girls by becoming heavily involved in the establishment of the Bronx Global Learning Institute for Girls, the Shirley Rodriguez Remeneski School.
All of the young ladies are bilingual, so they all speak Spanish and English because the curriculum is bilingual, and all of the young ladies also have to be enriched with music and art in the school. And the school is an award-winning school, and it's doing very well.
Shirley also served on numerous boards, among them as chair of the Bronx Lebanon Hospital, currently Bronx Care Hospital Center, the advisory board for the Metropolitan Museum's Multicultural Audience Development Committee, and the Hostos Community College Foundation Board. Overall, Shirley made sure that everything she did echoed the concerns of women and all of her fellow Bronxites, paving the way for great change.
We are so proud of the legacy that Shirley Rodriguez Remeneski left for us, and she's truly a Bronxite. Shirley has lived her life, loved the Bronx, and she will always be remembered as a Bronxite.
She was just such a fabulous friend. She was a great mother. She was a great sister and a real visionary. Always thought about helping others.
The lifetime of work that Shirley has done is for everybody, men and women in the Latino community, and all women, regardless of their race and ethnicity, is to know her name, because Shirley Rodriguez Remeneski mobilized housing, she mobilized policies, she mobilized medical resources to the community. And for some people, one lifetime, you get to do one of those things. And she did all of those things, and she made it look like it was easy when it was not. And so what she has done is really remarkable. Her career is remarkable. She is remarkable. And our mission is to ensure that no one ever forgets Shirley Rodriguez Remeneski.
In recognition of her tireless efforts, Shirley became the recipient of countless awards. As an exceptional Latina, she will continue to be regarded as an outstanding human being with exemplary vision and the drive to serve others by giving without expectation of receiving. In January 2019, at 81, Shirley passed away surrounded by her family. She is survived by her 2 children, Michelle Remeneski-Koch and Frankie Remeneski, 7 grandchildren, and a great-grandchild. Today, the 100 Hispanic women posthumously honor their founder, Shirley Rodriguez Remeneski, with the Latina Legend Award.